Good evening, my lovely listeners, and welcome to my second Q&A video. Thank you all so much for sending in your questions, and as this is also celebrating a subscriber milestone, thank you so much to all my amazing subscribers as well. So, without further delay, let's get going. Our first question comes from Nobody. Starting it out on an interesting question, do you think Santa is real? I believe in a lot of things. Unfortunately, now that I'm all grown up, Santa unfortunately isn't one of them. I can't remember when I stopped believing in Santa, maybe when I was about 7 or 8 or so. I'm wholeheartedly open to proof that he in fact does exist. Yeah, unfortunately, I think I outgrew him a bit. But thank you so much for your question, Nobody. And the next question comes from the Warhammer podcast. Have you ever considered making your own thumbnails for your YouTube videos? I create mine using Canva and PhotoJet. I have thought about it since so many other narrators do. I find that the thumbnail that's automatically generated from the video that I'm uploading works quite well at implying what the video is about. I have considered it, like actually writing the title in there, but in my mind, the title of the video itself is like literally right next to where the thumbnail is. So I get it that it's more eye-catching. It's just probably something I wouldn't put a lot of thought into doing. However, I do make them for my ASMR audios just because I want them to be quite distinct, and I quite like the template that I've got set out for them. So I'll probably continue using thumbnails I've made myself for my ASMR audios, but probably just use automatically generated thumbnails for my other narrations and poems. Awesome, thank you very much. The next question is from the Grandpa. Is the Countess going to kill us in the end or not? I'm not going to give away how this current series is going to end. I will say that it's going to be there's going to be some open endings about different things. I won't go into too much detail, but it's kind of up to you on how things progress. I won't say anything more than that, but whether the Countess is going to kill the listener or not, depends if she's in a good mood or not. Oh, thank you so much, Grandpa. And the next question comes from Nito Bandito, cats or dogs? I know this is kind of a straightforward question, but it's kind of a tricky answer for me. I've always grown up with having cats in our family home. We always wanted to get a dog, but unfortunately my brother just wasn't very good around dogs. But then when he eventually moved out, my sister begged and begged and begged my mum for us to be able to get a dog, specifically a corgi. And since he wasn't living with us anymore, she relaxed and opened up, and we eventually got our wonderful dog, Winston, who was just the sweetest, most loyal and loving thing. And so I think since actually being around a dog for a long period of time, I have to say I probably converted into being a dog person over a cat person. Don't get me wrong, I still love cats, and I would really love to have one here in London, but I have a feeling I'm grown into a bit more of a dog person, because I love just their unfailing loyalty and love, and yeah, they're just little balls of sunshine. What's not to love about them? So yeah, I think I'm a dog person. Thank you so much for your question. And our next question comes from Andrew Fisher. Where did you get the idea for the story of the Countess, and would you branch out into other genres for your ASMR videos, i.e. science fiction? Also, congratulations on 4,000 subscribers. Thanks so much, Andrew. I got the idea for the Countess from a number of different sources. Mostly it was just I love writing gothic fiction, and I liked the idea of kind of playing to my strong suits when I was starting to write my first ASMR series. At the moment, I'm playing a Curse of Strahd campaign with a group of friends for Dungeons and Dragons. For those unfamiliar, Curse of Strahd is a campaign where essentially you're a group of adventurers thrust into a kind of gothic, desolate land, which is ruled over by a vampiric tyrant. That sounds familiar. And so it's kind of from there that I took inspiration for the Countess. For other characters, like Seraphina the Maid and the Witch, they're more like original characters that I kind of thought up that could be like cool kind of creepy characters that would live in a castle like hers. But as for the idea of the Countess herself, she's kind of like the slightly alternate universe version of my narration persona, the Seraph of Stories, and a little bit of Strahd von Zadovich from the Curse of Strahd campaign as well. As for your second part of the question, would I branch into other genres? Absolutely. I would love to try my hand at science fiction themed ASMR videos, even if they were just like little self-contained one-shot role plays or something. I'm much more familiar and comfortable writing fantasy and horror. I'm not as well versed in science fiction, but I would give it a shot because I would like to try and play some more science fiction characters. And yeah, it could be an interesting challenge for me. So I'd absolutely consider science fiction, but I feel that my strengths are more in fantasy and horror. Thank you so much for your question, Andrew. And our next question comes from Matthew Murphy. As one of your newer subs, I'm really loving your work. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for subscribing as well. If given the chance, would you consider creating ASMR roleplays based on the works of Poe, Lovecraft, or any other author you may think of? I've thought about it, and I won't spoil what I'm thinking of planning for my next series, but it is going to be still kind of in keeping with fantasy and horror, but a little bit of science fiction thrown in there. But I would absolutely consider creating an ASMR roleplay based off of Lovecraftian horror. Edgar Allan Poe is a little bit trickier, unless you were, say, writing a ASMR roleplay in which the listener character was, say, an attendee at the Masque of the Red Death, which could be interesting for a one-shot. I couldn't really see it expanding into a longer series unless I was straight up paying homage in each chapter to one of Edgar Allan Poe's work. Similar to that movie with John Cusack, The Raven, which I haven't seen in a long time, but a little bit of a guilty pleasure movie. Unless I was doing something very much like that, I couldn't see it going into a longer series, but a Lovecraft series I could see, possibly in the future. I hope that answers your question, Matthew. Thank you so much. And our next question comes from Chris Van Vleer. Who would win a fight, Freddy Krueger or Ozzy Osbourne? I know this is a joke question, but my money's on Freddy Krueger. As for your actual question, which is more enjoyable to narrate, the stories and poems of established writers like the almighty Lovecraft, or the new stuff put out by writers who submit stories to you? As much as I do adore the classics and the beautiful archaic language that they use, I do absolutely love reading the stories that are written by writers who send their stuff to me, especially if they've written it not just like something that they've written a while ago that they thought, hey, could you read this for me? But if they've written something explicitly with me in mind to read it, it is immensely flattering and a huge honor to read their stories and put them on my channel. I do try to retain a high quality level of work for all the stories that I read. This includes classics as well as newcomers. If I find that a story might be heralded as this great, amazing piece, but I find it just doesn't fit for my channel, I won't read it, even if it's quite highly requested. Same goes if writers are submitting stories to me. If I find that it's just not quite a level of quality, and I know this sounds terrible, but if it's not quite fitting for the level of quality that I want to put on my channel, then I'll probably give some tips and advice on how to improve it. But I won't end up reading it on my channel. But pretty much everyone, all my good friends who have sent me stories to read, it's been an absolute huge honor. If you're listening to this, it's been an honor to read your stories on my channel. And yeah, thank you so much for the wonderful stories that you've sent in. And also to everyone who's requested stories from me. Honestly, they really help me spearhead a direction that I take my channel in. So thank you so much to all the people who request stories and all the people who send them in and write them specifically for me. But thank you so much for your question, Chris. And the next question comes from Finn Redwood. Pretty boring question, but what is your favourite colour? No such thing as a boring question. That's a classic question. My favourite colour, it's kind of a tie between a couple. I know that some people can just name off the top of their heads, like red, blue, grey, black, whatever. My favourite colour, just off the top of my head, like a deep kind of rich, kind of wine red and / pomegranate kind of colour. Like that deep kind of pinkish burgundy. It's not like dark and as heady as wine is, but that kind of like warm purplish pink burgundy. And I also really like shades of like soft kind of sky silvery blue, like a kind of the blue of a robin's egg. I also really love silver. I love gold. I love kind of a peacock blue, that kind of bluish green as well. I love kind of dark blues of the night sky. I also really love like a deep kind of rich purple, kind of a royal purple. I like soft grey. I like red. I like a lot of colours, but I have to say probably that pomegranate burgundy, like a soft sky blue, and probably a peacockish blue as well. They're probably some of my favourite colours. Well, thanks so much for your question, Finn. And the next question comes from Jan Kowalski. Have you any writing advice for beginners? Mainly, how do you get motivated to write? I have so many ideas in my head, but sometimes I just can't write a single sentence. Thanks so much for your question, but I'm not sure how helpful I'm going to be. Honestly, if you set deadlines for yourself, like I'll have this amount of words written by the end of the week, and then you try and break it out into small increments, that helps to kind of push you forward. Set reminders for yourself, like whether you set reminders on your phone, like in the afternoon, that certain set number of words each day. Yeah, setting deadlines does help, but being a writer is so much in flux, like, because your creativity kind of ebbs and flows like waves on a beach. Sometimes, massive creative waves come crashing down and you can't move your fingers fast enough for typing, and then other times weeks or even months go by without any particular thought. Honestly, I just kind of write down little creative blurbs that pop off the top of my head, like shower thoughts or things that kind of pop up when I'm at the gym. So long as you're just like collecting interesting ideas, you might find then when you kind of look back at them and see them all together, you might be able to slowly generate a bigger picture of how to articulate it. But again, it's one thing to have an idea and another thing to write it down. I think keep writing down everything that you come up with. Even if you think it's not the best idea, don't delete it, hold on to it, because you can still workshop it later. How I stay motivated to write, like for the example of the ASMR series I'm working on, honestly, having you guys kind of breathing down the back of my neck and like, where's the next chapter? That does help to inspire me to keep going and keep pushing myself, because I know that I have an audience that genuinely wants to read it. And that does really help to keep me going, light that fire under my ass and keep me writing. So maybe if you talk to a good friend of yours who's possibly also a writer, or someone that you would like to help kind of motivate you, whether it's a family member or a friend, that then they can tap on your shoulder every so often like, hey, you said you're going to send me something when you finish writing it. And then maybe if you haven't finished a full short story, or just like have someone to bounce ideas off of. Because I find when you're talking to someone about what you're working on, when you're expressing things vocally, it helps to generate interesting new ideas, and then that might help to spur your creativity along. And then once you've got those creative wheels turning, you'll find that the words will start coming like water through a mill or something like that. Yeah, I hope that helps, Jan. I'm not the best when it comes to advice, but I really hope that helps somehow. Thank you so much for your question. The next question comes from David Bliss. I know it's a little different from your normal content, but would you consider doing Let's Plays of games such as Doki Doki Literature Club? The reason I point out that one is due to it containing both poetry and that creepy darker side. I have considered doing Let's Plays before, because I'm part of a Twitch channel that's run by Murphy and Raven, Wellhay Productions and Creepy Raven respectively. That channel's called Soaring Jester. This is just a shameless plug. Soaring Jester, it's a Twitch channel that myself and a number of other narrators and people in the voiceover and creepy community, we play video games and stuff and get up to random shenanigans. So I'm already kind of part of a Let's Play kind of roster of sorts. I have considered actually pushing and setting up my own Twitch channel. I would consider doing a Let's Play if it was something like a Twitch stream. Probably not something like I just record myself playing it on my own and then upload it, because I want to be able to bounce off of people in the chat and have someone to talk to, because I am playing it on my own, unless it was a co-op game. I would just be on my own and wouldn't really have anyone else to bounce off of, but if I did have a chat going at the same time, then I would consider doing Let's Plays on occasion and see how it goes from there. Because I have picked up that a lot of people really enjoy the sound of my voice. They find it quite soothing. So maybe if I played games that were maybe more like unwinding, kind of like de-stressing games, like whether it's Doki Doki Literature Club or maybe some other games like Transistor or Bastion, and trying some games like that out. Still keeping the kind of creepy undertone, probably not make my channel like exclusively horror. But yeah, just kind of see how things go. I would absolutely consider it, but at the meantime, I'm just focusing my energy on finishing this ASMR series, and then if there's demand for it, I'll genuinely put in interest in setting up a Twitch channel and seeing how that goes. But thank you so much for your question, David. The next question comes from Miss Val Robin. Would you consider doing a reading of The Legend of the Baskerville Hound from the book Hound of the Baskervilles by Conan Doyle? And after you're finished with The Castle of Blue Roses, would you try another roleplay than vampire, like maybe a mermaid or a fairy tale princess? I haven't actually read Hound of the Baskervilles by Conan Doyle, but if The Legend of the Baskerville Hound is like a kind of story within a story within the book, I'd absolutely consider it, because I wouldn't read a full book like Hound of the Baskerville, but if it's like a self-contained kind of mini bit of lore, I'd absolutely consider it. Thanks so much for requesting it. I'll have a look. As for other characters, I'd absolutely love to play a mermaid character sometime. Possibly also a fairy tale princess. I'd have to think about if I wanted to play off like an already established princess, like a Snow White or Sleeping Beauty or something like that. I'd absolutely consider both of those kinds of characters, but they'd probably be more like self-contained, like mini, like one-shot role plays rather than being characters in a larger story. Unless I was really inspired to do something, I would probably only do them for one-shots, but I would absolutely still consider doing them in the future. Cool, thanks so much for your question. And the next question comes from Brent Fees. Are you a fan of 40k as well? And if so, do you think you'll read any 40k stories on here or do any 40k roleplays? I've coincidentally always wanted someone to do an ASMR video as an elder with a vocal effect. 40k lore is something I would really love to learn more about. I'm looking around for videos that are kind of like explanations on the lore without saying that you should go read these chapters of these books in order to read more, kind of understand it. Because it is such a vast and interesting universe. I would like to learn more about Warhammer Fantasy, because I'm starting to find that my voice is now getting around more in the Warhammer community on YouTube for voice acting stuff. I wouldn't say I'm a fan just because I know so little about it, but I do find it very interesting and I would like to read more about it. I would absolutely love to read some 40k stories on here. If there's any pieces of lore that people can maybe link me to or request particular titles, that would be really, really good, because then I have an idea of what to look for. As for the request for an ASMR video with an elder, if I knew more about the elder as a culture and what I could maybe like expand on for writing a short, maybe one-shot ASMR audio, I would consider it, but only after I've read a bit more about the Eldar as a culture and their history and a bit about their particular lore, so I have an idea of what to write. Cool, thank you so much for your question, Brent. And the next question comes from Pariah. So it's commonly known that you like D&D, so that got me wondering, outside of D&D, are there any other fantasy-style games that you enjoy? For example, stuff like Magic the Gathering or Warhammer 40k. Also, it might be cheating a bit, but I have a slightly less serious second question. How do you deal with those people who join your campaign who are just the DM's bane? Oh boy. I have thought about getting into some card games like Magic the Gathering. Warhammer 40k, it looks absolutely fascinating, and my stepbrothers actually, they play it quite a lot. They collect and paint minis, they're very, very passionate about it. I would love to maybe, if I had a friend who was also playing it. Unfortunately, as far as I know, none of my friends in London are players of Warhammer 40k at the moment. But if I had a friend, that they wouldn't mind if I sat in on one of their sessions to get an idea of what it was like. Similar to someone sitting in on a D&D session to get an idea of what that's like. Possibly, but it's a game that seems to me to require quite a bit of investment in terms of buying minis and that kind of stuff. I would possibly get into a card game like Magic the Gathering if I had someone to teach me kind of how to play it and how to play it effectively. At the moment, I'm more than happy just sticking with D&D at the moment because I love that game so much. I do have a serious dice problem. It's slowly draining my bank account. At the moment, I'm more than happy sticking with D&D, but I would absolutely love to try out some other games like Magic the Gathering or Warhammer 40k. Yeah, I'd love to try those out in the future sometime. But as for how I deal with those people who join your campaign who have the problems with the DM, it's something that I know it's weird to say, but it's kind of the DM's responsibility. Like for me, personally, one of the DM's top priorities should be that everyone at the table is having fun. And if they're picking up that one or two people might be a bit problematic, as for what kind of, like, problematic they are, there's a whole slew of them, different things. But they should be able to pick up if the other players aren't quite syncing well with another person, even if they're all friends and the DM themselves are good friends with everyone at the table. They should be able to like pull a player aside, not like shame them in public or anything like that, but maybe just like send them a message like, hey, this thing that you do or this thing that you say is making people uncomfortable. Could you maybe like tone down on it and maybe like ensue like a 3-strike kind of thing. Like if they continue to kind of being problematic and pressing uncomfortable buttons, then they have a timeout and they have to sit out for the rest of the game, or they're just not invited back if it's a serious problem. If you yourself as a player are having problems with another person at the table, if it's for like a one-shot game and it's like a public game that's being held at a convention or at a game shop or something like that, it's going to be over soon. Like, just try your best to kind of ignore it. Or if it's really making you uncomfortable, like, try your best to say something. But if it's for a long campaign, like over the course of a few months to maybe a few years length campaign, don't be afraid to talk to your DM that you might have some problems with one particular person's mannerisms or whatever it is that makes you uncomfortable. Because again, the DM is there to, like, everyone there is there to have fun. And if some people aren't having fun, then that's kind of not what Dungeons & Dragons is about. Yes, it's a story about epic storytelling, amazing characters, killing monsters and finding loot. But at its core, it's a game. And games are supposed to be fun and enjoyable and build cool and fun relationships. And so if there's someone there who's being a dick to everyone else, or just try your best to communicate clearly and effectively what it is that makes you uncomfortable, or if they're being problematic to other players that you've heard about. Like, talk to other players if it's just you, or if they're feeling it as well. And then say that maybe a few of you are having the same problem, and it helps to kind of like make it that it's not just you, it's everyone else. Because yeah, I really hope that helps, Pariah. I've had my fair share of problematic people playing games with, and I've been a part of some Dungeons and Dragons groups that just haven't clicked well, and I've been the one who's had to leave the table. Because if it's something like you're genuinely not feeling comfortable with the vibe of everyone at the table, then I know it's terrible to say, but just try to find another group that you feel more comfortable playing with and opening up with. I hope that helps, Pariah, I really do. Thank you so much for your question. Next question is from Nick Schubert, and it is a very, very popular question. When will Chapter 4 be released? As with this chapter and all future chapters, it will be released when it is finished. That is all I shall say. Thank you so much, Nick. And our final question for the evening is from the lovely Victoria Weeks. What's your favourite poem or story you've ever read? I thought I'd end it on a very, very, very good question. I'm very torn on what story or poem is my particular favourite. If you'll allow me to pick one of each, I think my favourite poem that I've read is one of my favourite poems in general, The Lady of Shalott by Tennyson. Absolutely one of my favourite poems ever, and I was delighted to record it for my channel, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. As for my favourite story, I quite enjoy stories to read where I can get really, really involved, especially if it's like from a first-person perspective, because then I get to flex my acting chops a bit and not just be the narrator. So in that sense, I have to say I really loved when I got to read Don't Know You from Adam by Imperial Invective. I think that's one of the stories I'm the most proud of in terms of my narration of it. And I genuinely did enjoy reading it aloud as well. Also, The Hound by H.P. Lovecraft. Sorry, I'm not picking one anymore. The Hound by H.P. Lovecraft, and a story that genuinely did tug at my heartstrings and made me tear up a bit. The Nightingale and the Rose by Oscar Wilde. It's such a beautiful and heartbreaking story. So yes, favourite poem, Lady of Shalott. Favourite stories, Don't Know You from Adam, The Hound, and The Nightingale and the Rose. Oh, thank you so much for your question, Victoria. And that's it for this round of questions. Thank you so much to everyone who sent them in. I hope you all liked the answers, and a huge, huge thank you to all of the subscribers who've helped me to reach these milestones to do another Q&A. And so until next time, my lovely listeners, I hope you all have a wonderful evening. And as always, stay wicked and wonderful. Good night.